how I'll introduce myself, but it's
okay,
your
good,
podcast.
I get you. That's part of it.
Okay.
Welcome back to another episode of Runky's Room, the podcast that I, Runky, do from my room, because where else would I do it? Today's episode is special. I've been kind of branding myself as something of a dumbass in previous episodes, I would say. Now we're getting to know the intellectual side of me with my number one most intellectual friend, also lover. Welcome, Greta Shope, to the podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Greta Shope, and I am a preeminent Fourth Amendment idiot, as well as a passive enjoyer of other parts of constitutional law, and today I am serving in the capacity of lawyer sitting next to my friend Mal in a state prison. Yes,
which I think has kind of been our working relationship always, is like, we're talking about constitutional law from the point of view of people who are already in jail awaiting trial. Yeah. And that gives us, like, the power and the energy that we need to be successful.
I actually have an anecdote that I would like to open with.
Yes! We love that.
Because yesterday, my mother told me she got hit with a email offer to go to a seminar at a hotel about Fusion Center intelligence.
No way!
And efficiency in intelligence sharing. And I thought that would be a great lead-in to our topic of the Fourth Amendment.
Yes.
And the right to privacy.
So, it's kind of hard for me to, like, in all of these episodes, I find myself wanting to, like, just start. And then I remember that the goal here is for people who don't know me to be watching this. So people who, if anyone's, on the off chance that there's someone out there who has stumbled across this on YouTube or Spotify and is listening to this and is like, who's Runky? Yeah. What's this about? Why is she talking about the Fourth Amendment? I thought I might share why it is that you and I are resident experts on the Fourth Amendment. We're actually going to do there is an entire episode about this thing that we did that made us experts. Yeah. It is the finale to season 1. So, and that will be, like, by the time this is up, that will also be up. So, if you want to hear more about this, go to the finale episode. I think it's episode 6 or 7 or 8. I don't know yet. We're crossing bridges as we get to them. But the answer to the question is that we did this thing.
May I?
Yeah.
Have you ever wanted to be the best at something?
I know I have.
Let me tell you. You're talking to two people who, in the United States of America, were legally declared to be the best at sitting in a group of 4 across from the oldest men you've ever met, who are so annoyed to be there. Yeah. And reading a paper about a constitutional question. Yes. And then being harassed.
For 10 minutes.
By those old men for 10 minutes. And then
getting a score about it. We were declared literally the best
in the nation.
We are gold medal national champions of the Center for Civic Education's We the People competition.
Does the irony strike you at all that we are making a podcast which, in format and pedantry, is incredibly similar to the American Constitutional Life?
The Constitution in American Life podcast? Yes. With 4 DILFs? Yeah. Yes. This is... See... Yes, but they only talk about We the People questions and constitutional stuff. I talk about everything, ever. So I like to think that I'm more of a Renaissance man than they are. That being said, this is definitely like it's giving Constitution in American Life. And I don't. That's appropriate because I don't think I would be sitting here if those men hadn't contributed what they did to society.
Absolutely not. That's very true.
They lit a fire under our coach, Mr. Olmschneider.
Samuel Emanuel
Olmschneider. If he listens to this, I'm shooting myself. And I'll say that. I'll post that. Mr. Olmschneider, if you're watching my podcast, you're allowed to watch this episode, and that's it. Every other episode, please, God, just don't do it. You don't want to do it.
Maybe we can cut together, like, a super cut of the 3 total minutes we're saying smart things.
Right.
And you can send that to him.
Yeah. I'm, like, literally gonna be emailing former English and Spanish teachers of mine to, like, once the... Well, so I was gonna say that I'm gonna email them and be like, I made this video about poetry.
Mm-hmm.
It's 45 minutes long.
Sure.
You should go check it out
Absolutely.
and see my thoughts. Because I think that, like, English teachers have historically been chill enough. Some of our Spanish
Mr.
teachers
Cashwell
also...
has nothing going on.
Exactly. And I think that they would love my rambling.
Mm-hmm.
But, that being said, I did all of that talking, and I made no point. Like, I didn't quite accomplish literally anything. So,
And
I'm gonna have to, like...
To that I say, welcome to academia.
I went into it without a point. I exited it
Mm-hmm.
without a point. But I did spend about 10 minutes talking about the beef between Gongora and Quevedo. And I think that's what the world needs to hear.
Absolutely.
So it's going on YouTube anyway.
Yeah.
And I think if people like it enough, I will reach out to some of our former teachers and be like, yo, smash that like button. But if people think this bitch is stupid, I won't. And such is life.
You know, I went back actually for the first time and I watched our nationals competition videos.
I was about to do that and I couldn't find it.
I can send you the link. I sent it to because I was talking with Ryan Marks about it. And
Ryan, come on my podcast.
Ryan, come on the podcast. There are a couple. Can Ryan and I do an episode on like Supreme Court?
Yes.
That'd be great.
Yes.
You
have to share a mic. I only have 2. But
that won't be a problem for us. He can sit in my lap like a little marionette.
Okay.
But there's some... I went back and I watched the speech one because that was our greatest moment.
Best. That is one of the best things I've ever done as a person.
I might do another segment for the We the People finale episode 6. Tune in. That's like my favorite moments from it.
Yeah.
Because I think my all-time favorite... it might be my runner-up, so I don't mind saying it, is...
Can I guess what you're about to say?
Yes.
When you and Bruce were, like, fake beefing about something, and he goes, but Greta, what you have to understand is that
That's
it?
correct, yeah.
Oh, shit!
That's my favorite. It was about free speech in schools, and I said Morse v. Frederick, which is a case where this kid who didn't even come to school that day showed up holding a sign that said Blonde Kids for Jesus, and they were like, the school can still expel him because he was creating disturbance.
But he wasn't on school grounds. I hate that
He was across the street. But then Bruce points out, what Greta, you have to understand is that... Whatever.
I don't know. And that was the winning strategy, I think, were all of the times where we said shit we did not believe for the sake of disagreement.
Oh, because one of my other favorites
is my...
defending the exclusionary rule
I
as
would
an
never.
appropriate means of,
doing
stopping
whatever
the cops from doing illegal shit. And then Ethan was with me in that room and saying... I'm sorry, Mal. I have to disagree.
Yeah. It's so... Should I tell that story in more detail on that episode? Because I can that moment was like so buzzer beater, like
you did a great job, and you got in and out and gave me 10 seconds to start my next point, and then they hit it, and then we kept going.
It gave the perfect little, like, we could keep going if you want, because we're so good at this competition. We should be national champions, that I would say it really sealed the deal for us. But I'll tell that story in more detail later, because that was a crazy moment.
And it was about the Fourth Amendment.
And it was about the Fourth Amendment. So, the Fourth Amendment, so, like, okay, We the People is this competition about the Constitution and constitutional history. But we talked about the Fourth Amendment, like, way more than literally anything else. We talked about the First Amendment a lot, but not at all to the extent that we talked about the Fourth Amendment.
Well, so specifically, we talk about the Bill of Rights, we should say. Yes. Or about rights, positive and negative.
So, like, our team, our We the People team was 24 people, and the way it works is it's subdivided into 6 smaller units, and each unit has its own topical focus. And our group of 4, Unit 5, was about the Bill of Rights. So all of our questions, all of our essays, every round we did, focused on the Bill of Rights. But there are some amendments, some infinities are larger than others. Some amendments matter more than others. Can I say that in today's America?
No, yeah, you can.
Okay. For Amendment 1 and Amendment 4 are, like, literally God, King, and Queen of the Constitution. They rule that. They run it.
Yeah.
And so most of our questions were about those two. And
9 and 10, I would say also.
9 and 10, but it's like, it's kind of a one and done, like, okay, we get it. Although 9, baby girl, 10 is like, okay, whatever. But all of the questions about 10, like, have so much more Unit 4 implication than we do, so we didn't really have to get into it.
Actually, this is a great time to reveal to everyone on the Runky's Room podcast, I don't know what federalism is, and I never will.
I think that we, as an American society, are all just pretending to, like,
I remember at one point,
page.
We scripted a question, it was about schools, I think, where Summer had to say that she believed that, I believe it was something to do with the religious schools causes 14th Amendment problems and federalism concerns. And she said it in a competition. And I don't think any of us, and I'm the one that said, let's put the federalism part in. And I still don't know what I was
I think judges eat up anything. Like, if you name drop federalism, they get excited because no one knows what it is. So on the off chance that some student is able to even, like, mention it, it's like they think that you're smarter than you are. They don't know either. That's the half of it. But anyway, so our very first question that we did was literally
for a regional competition.
Does the Constitution protect? Oh my god! I'm sorry. Can we say what the Fourth Amendment is?
Yes. Okay. I think I can.
Your mic isn't plugged in.
It hasn't been this whole time. Well, do we have to start over?
No.
Okay.
That's crazy though. How does that?
Where do I plug it in?
I can do it. I'm leaving this in. So far, every episode has me getting out of my chair to, like, solve a technical problem. And just not cutting it out at all. That's awesome. Did you know that this is what I do for a living?
Really? How come we could never get you on tech crew at school?
Because I started doing it for a living after I graduated from high school.
How come I never got paid either? Whatever, it got me into college.
Shit that dude. My job is so Greta Shope coded. Can this go in?
I think that's how we're all turning into Crab.
Yeah,
you know, we're all sort of becoming a monolith of a person.
I'm gonna lose my fucking mind. Go.
Is it the wrong chord or something?
No, it is. There we go. I got
it. The Fourth Amendment of the American Constitution says it contains...
Wait, do it. I want to see if I can do it.
Okay. I don't know if I'll be able to catch your
Can I get the first word?
The?
Okay,
I'm pretty sure.
Hold on. Okay.
I believe it begins with the right.
Okay. The right of every man to be protected, to be safeguarded, secure in his person's, houses, papers, and effects from unreasonable searches and seizures without shall not be violated except
oh no, I don't think that's right. And no? Yeah.
The right of every man to be secure in his person's, houses, papers, and effects from against
what's the big ticket word that means nothing?
Against we're gonna get into that. Because unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated except if you have a warrant. You get it.
Yeah. I think, quote me wrong, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue except upon probable cause by oath or affirmation, with specifically detailing the persons or places to be searched or the
seized.
Items to be seized.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. I have it. I can look it up.
Okay.
Hold on.
Still, that was impressive that both of us could get that far.
We got the big parts.
The big idea in there.
All right. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So within that, there's a couple of, like, broad strokes things that I'm gonna pull out.
I love the Fourth Amendment.
So there's the procedural aspects of your warrant, which must issue only upon oath or affirmation. Probable cause required to issue that warrant. And the particularity of the place and persons to be searched and seized. An arrest warrant is also a kind of Fourth Amendment warrant, but we don't talk about that one that much because it's kind of dumb.
Because, like, if you need to arrest someone,
you get a warrant sometimes.
Like, boom, you're done.
Sometimes you shoot them.
If you want to look around someone's house, there's so many loopholes there. So that's how you get into all of these.
So there's sort of two roads diverging in a yellow wood. The procedural one, which is more of the words of the Fourth Amendment, the probable cause, oath or affirmation, particularity. And then there's the right of people to be secure, which is within the line of, warrant requirements, but also encompasses, along with the 10th Amendment and some other...
hold on. First...
Hit us.
Which one did we say?
Ginsburg. We changed it the day of. It was Ginsburg. It's first, 9th, and 14th is what Bruce said. It was his part of the paper.
Let me translate what we're saying for you guys. So, what Greta's getting at is that the words of the Fourth Amendment create a government procedure for the process of issuing warrants to protect the individual right to privacy in your person's houses, papers, and effects. That's the procedural right to privacy. There's also another vaguer, weirder, bigger, technically non-existent, fundamental right to privacy created in this thing called a penumbra.
Penumbras and emanations of the Constitution, according to Justice Harlan. And everybody kind of disagrees as to where the right to privacy is. Some people would say, like, first... Harlan himself said 1st, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 9th, 10th.
Yeah.
Justice Ginsburg, no, not Ginsburg, excuse me. It starts with a G, doesn't it?
Yes. Justice
Oh, shit. It's in the paper, but I don't have the paper.
I'm not looking at the fucking paper.
But it's a justice from the olden days.
In the decision,
Goldberg.
Yep.
Said that he believed it to be in the 1st, 4th, 9th, and 14th Amendments. Yeah. And that's the one that...
we like that one.
We liked... It's the one that Bruce liked, and he picked it, and we all said, we believe you. We never had to defend that decision.
I would say 1, 3, 4, and 9.
Underrated king, Third Amendment. Third Amendment says that you can't quarter troops in private property of citizens. It has never been brought up in a Supreme Court case, one of the only unincorporated amendments, which means it isn't applied to the states because no state so far.
So if a state militia needed to be quartered in your home,
well, the Supreme Court might just have put on their boots and do some fucking work.
Yeah.
They don't like to do that.
They don't like to do that. I love the Third Amendment also because, so like, if you're gonna, the concept of a penumbra is that you would only dictate these procedural rights if you had a feeling that there existed a more fundamental version of those rights. Yes. Like, why would you want a warrant requirement if you didn't think there was a right to privacy?
Yes.
And so if we're using that kind of, like, extrapolatory logic, of course the Third Amendment's going to be about privacy. Yeah. I have privacy in my home, that's why I'm not going to have soldiers in it.
The Fourth Amendment is not the creator of the right to privacy, it's a symptom of the right to privacy.
Yeah. I was gonna add on to that analogy, and I don't think I can do it. I think you.
Summer's not here.
Summer's not here. Oh fuck! But she will be tomorrow. She's gonna talk about traveling.
Oh, very nice. And getting
COVID. Stay tuned.
So I thought maybe we could do kind of a best of case rundown a little bit.
I have my prepared, like, thing. No, this
Please.
is good. I literally wrote down Supreme Court Fourth Amendment worst hits, ready, go.
Okay.
Like, that was on the agenda. So, yes, let's
worst
do both.
Hits.
No, let's start. You're onto something here. I like being positive. I want the good news first. best hits first. Worst hits second. There's also going to be fewer best hits, so this is kind of chronologically a good idea.
Okay. So yeah, so we can say some of the best sort of hits of the Fourth Amendment, wherein they the Supreme Court and a couple of state courts have expanded the right to privacy or clarified it in a way that is more protective of American rights. And let's start with wham bam thank you ma'am, perhaps the best case out there, Katz versus United States.
She's that girl. She's that girl. Katz versus United States is the reason why I am the man who I am today. I said this is on video somewhere, like, if I had to marry one Supreme Court case, like, smooch it on the lips.
I think we should, maybe we should close with fuck, marry, kill Supreme Court.
Oh, yeah.
We could also do that for the finale. Up to you.
We'll see how we're feeling.
Maybe both. Maybe we beta it today, and we can do it for real. So Katz, prior to the Supreme Court case, Katz versus United States, which came in 1967, what a time to be alive. Glad I wasn't.
No men had ever been on the moon.
No, good point. So prior to that, the Supreme Court had kind of said the Fourth Amendment doesn't really apply to intangible objects, right? Your house is safe, but a call you make from a phone booth, well, that's not your shit.
Right.
So
like, you don't own the call, so
you aren't made. That's not private. And in Katz, they said, Mr. Katz, who was doing illegal gambling. Okay. Most of them are drugs.
I always think he's a drug dealer because, as you're gonna come to find out, everyone in these cases was selling drugs.
But... Yeah. Fourth Amendment, we do a lot of defending drug dealers. First Amendment, we do a lot of defending hate groups.
Yes.
And reluctantly.
If you want more on the justification of why we, in a couple of rounds, had to say some extremely morally questionable things, we'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it. But, so he was on the phone doing some, he said, hey, can we reenact the conversation? Get on the phone with me. Hello.
Who am I?
The guy Katz was calling.
Hi.
Hey, it's me, Katz. I'm gonna call you later. This is a preemptory call about our illegal gambling ring.
Okay.
Just hold tight, and I'll call you about that.
Okay, I'll be here at this payphone.
Yeah, alright, bye. And then, meanwhile, cop, headphones on.
Wiretaps Katz's phone.
Plugging, unplugging, I assume.
Not sure, can interlude here?
Hit
what the fuck? Wiretapping? You're literally, like, tapping wires? Is that what it is?
I don't know. I assume.
Some slimy pig got wind of this conversation and found a way to weasel his way in.
So he weasels his way in, he's tapped into the wires, and they arrest Katz, but the conviction is overturned because the recordings of that phone call were not admissible in court because
he didn't have a warrant for it.
Yes. And where any area, the court says, wherein you have a reasonable expectation of privacy is now protected under the Fourth Amendment. We wrote a beautiful sentence about that one time, and we used it in both papers. I don't know if you guys knew that.
Which one?
It was the one about a reasonable, quote, reasonable expectation of privacy. We wrote a sentence that described Katz because it's such an important case. You have to mention it in all of your papers. And I wrote the Q3 Nationals paper first draft, and I copy and pasted it, and nobody ever changed it, and we used this
because the word count was just, we had stripped it of every possible filler word, and so it was the most concise summary of Katz versus United States that we could find.
I think we should do 3 of the best, and then we'll kind of hit some worst hits.
Okay,
how does that sound?
Brewing up some worst hits already.
I'm gonna say my second best, best hit is, oh god, what is my second best, first best hit? It's gonna be...
I can't think of literally one.
Really?
I can't think of another case other than Katz, other than, like, the well, we're gonna have to talk about abortion in a minute. Yeah, because that was one thing that, like, everything we talked about in We the People never quite had a fully good, like, 100% I'm there answer, other than the abortion thing. And that's crazy.
Okay, so I'm gonna say, let's travel back in time 2 years. 1965. Griswold v. Connecticut.
I was about to,
I think that's our next hit.
Oh, fuck. Dude, Griswold. Griswold, I love Griswold v. Connecticut. The fact that it's technically a Fourth Amendment case has always rubbed me the wrong way, because it was like, the court packed every possible precedent it could into one case. They were like, oh, you're talking about birth control or whatever? How about I enumerate every other possible thing that you should have protected, and I'm going to do it in one case, and no one can stop me. And they did. And good for them. I love that case. Would you like to give a summary?
Sure. So Griswold is 1965. Connecticut says that you can't buy contraception in Connecticut anymore, and some married couples say there's a lot of plaintiff shopping that goes on at this point, which basically means like the ACLU says, let's pick the best possible plaintiff for this case. They decide that it's good straight-laced married couples who just want to not have a seventh child or whatever the fuck, and they rule that you can't ban people from buying contraception because you have a right within your marriage to do whatever you want.
You have privacy in your marriage.
A little bit.
Based. I have my next answer then.
Yeah.
Let me not fuck this up. Okay, wait. No, I want to finish talking about Griswold, because not only did they say, hey, you can do contraception, but it's like that it's like, who knew that saying you can do contraception now means you can actually do a bunch of other stuff? Because if you can do contraception because your marriage is private, you can do a lot of things if your marriage is private, and they said that. And that was a good thing.
It was a real attempt to codify the right to privacy in a time when the Supreme Court still wrote cohesive doctrines.
And by a time, what we mean is who was he? Chief Justice.
The Warren Court?
The Warren Court.
Yes. Earl Warren. Bestie for life.
Bay. Other than
still not over how you defended the concentration camps in California of Japanese people. He did that. He was a lawyer at the time. Yeah.
They're never perfect.
No, they're never perfect. All right. What?
Okay, my last Fourth Amendment.
Oh, please.
Smash hit.
Yeah.
Not Lawrence, but the other one.
Oh, Bowers?
No, Lawrence.
Lawrence v. Texas.
Bowers was the bad one.
Bowers is bad one. That's on my worst hits list.
Bowers v. Hardwick. Then let's get into it.
Can I tell the story?
The story is so good.
All right, there's this guy. I'm trying to remember which one he is.
Hardwick.
Bowers is the cop? Yeah. So,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. This guy works at a gay bar. And one day he's taking the trash out at the end of the night, and he's arrested for being drunk and disorderly by this cop. And he then proceeds to not come to court on his assigned day because they told him the wrong day. There was a clerical error. He goes to court, agrees to pay a fine for missing his court date, even though he didn't.
It's not his fault.
That's such small fish.
Somehow that's not the problem here.
Yeah. He goes, he pays the fine, the charge is dropped, largely because he also was not drunk in the street, and is just chilling out. And the cop who arrested him, who takes this warrant that was issued for him, which is now invalid because he had cleared the charge,
right,
goes to his house. It's unclear whether he opened the door or whether the door was open or the door was unlocked, enters this man's house with a warrant that's not good. And
catches Hardwick in the act of anal sex with a man. No, oral sex with a man.
Oral sex with a man.
Details.
So, yeah. My man who works at this gay bar is putting that job to use and has found some great...
clients.
Yeah.
No, I shouldn't say that.
Not clients. He's getting some, right? And he is then arrested.
And in Texas,
it was Georgia. Lawrence v. Texas. We'll get there. Georgia had a sodomy law at the time. We don't have to talk about how it's not sodomy.
Right.
Whatever. He gets arrested. The DA does agree not to continue with the charge, probably because they know it would reflect very poorly on their police department to have random cops breaking into people's houses to arrest them for having sex in their closed bedrooms. But Bauer sues anyways. They sue anyways because he says he doesn't feel safe knowing that he could be arrested at any time for having sex in his own house.
Right.
And the court says, fuck you, buddy. Stop taking it up the ass or move to Vermont, essentially.
Yeah. So somehow, this is really one of the worst hits ever, because the court and honestly just the state ruins it time and time again in the same story.
Here's how they like to phrase it, and I think this is actually a great way to think about it. If you say anything in a sarcastic enough voice and are like, this is a right you have, it sounds stupid.
Right.
Just like how if I say, you mean that the First Amendment says I have the right to put whatever I want on a bagel on 4th Avenue, sounds ridiculous. The court takes this approach and says, you mean you can have penetrative sex with a man when you're a man, whenever you want, and that's in James Madison's Constitution? I don't think so. And they say that, and then there's a concurring opinion by Justice Berger who says, I agree. Also, this was disgusting. And don't do it again!
Is this or Lawrence the one where it was like a class action and there were also straight couples who wanted to, like, peg each other? And that went to the Supreme Court. Is that this one? Yeah. So the sodomy law
previously
literally...
They were later dropped from the case for not having standing, but there were other couples involved who wished to have... They were plaintiff shopping. They were trying to build the best case that they could. There were a couple other gay couples who were also in the case because at this point they're just suing for the potential harm that would result if they were to be arrested under this law because they believed it to be unconstitutional. And yes, for a brief time when it was in the district court, there were a few straight couples on the plaintiff list because
technically the sodomy law would prevent pegging.
Can't put anything in your mouth, you can't put anything up your butt.
Yeah.
Up your mouth, too. All men, really, you should be very upset. But...
No blowjobs in Georgia.
No. Well, so... This is a great transition. That was one of the worst hits. Now we can transition to Lawrence v. Texas.
When they fixed it.
When they fixed it, it's kind of a similar case. This guy gets arrested for anal sex this time.
Yeah.
Important distinction. And then they declare the Texas law unconstitutional. The dissent, still very similar, is like, you mean to tell me that this guy can get that ass whenever he wants, and you can't do anything to stop him, and
the court this time was like, actually yes.
No. And I should note, my number one homeboy, Antonin Scalia.
Oh my god, I can't believe you just said that.
Is in dissent.
Hate him, hope he's rotting in hell. Icon, though.
You can't do that. You probably can't flick off the camera.
Yeah, you can.
Okay. I don't know what you do.
Are you gonna get me demonetized?
We're already demonetized.
I just talked a lot about pegging.
Yeah. Says that they shouldn't have done it because Bowers v. Hardwick, which was the bad case, and Lawrence v. Texas are so close together in time that it doesn't make sense to overturn the precedent right now.
Which is the, craziest thing you could possibly say.
It's a wild thing to sort of get all up in there.
And he said a lot of crazy things, but I would say definitely top 3 is let's not make the correct decision because we made the wrong decision, not that long ago, and, everyone's gonna get confused. That's such bull. I hate Scalia. Miss him every day.
I wish he was still alive, but I wish he was, in hospice.
Right. I want him to be capable of having a good Italian dinner with me. and then going back to his, like, breathalyzer.
I would also like his body to be available the way that Stalin's body is available, so I could go visit him and just say, you know what, bitch, you're here, and I'm still alive.
It takes so much money to keep Lenin's body like that.
That's true.
His spirit is fighting
FedSoc
science.
can pay for it. You don't think the Federalist Society can pay for it?
Federalist Society can do anything they want.
So they ought to be paying to keep Antonin Scalia's.
They can pay for me to buy a third microphone. FedSoc.
So that Ryan Marks can be on the podcast.
If you're listening to me talk shit about all of your people,
mm-hmm.
and you want to hear more of it, give me money. I know you have it.
Now can we hit some of the worst hits? I know we just did Bowers v. Hardwick.
And you know what I want to talk about when it comes to worst hits. Like, there's kind of like a big boy worst hits, but then there's my baby.
Oh!
LA County
versus Rittel.
Listen.
This was the first case we ever talked about,
yeah.
I think. We had a case book, big case book with a whole bunch of Fourth Amendment stuff. You took the case book home, you came back, and you said, I want to talk about this case called LA County versus Rittel. We never got to use it.
Mm-hmm. It went in one draft of the paper and then got cut.
Did we ever bring it up in a... I feel like somebody brought it up in a round.
No, I did. I definitely did, because it was, like, the biggest moment ever, because I was, like, finally my favorite
It was
case.
I'm saving but that one and Bruce's just because.
Yeah.
National's some of the best.
We had some really iconic moments. So, like, the case doesn't matter that much. Like, there are some just landmark staple cases in Fourth Amendment jurisprudence.
This isn't one of them.
Is not one of them, but I love it. I think it's hilarious. So, basically what happened, I have to tell this story. I have to.
Let me just say it's 2007. So,
keep that in mind.
George Bush is president.
Yes.
Post 9/11.
We're living in a Patriot Act world. Here's what happens.
Hit me.
There's a couple. Correct me. Follow on my details here.
Yeah, I got you.
There's a couple, an African American couple that's wanted for, like, fraud or something.
Identity theft.
Identity theft. And police are going to. They have a warrant.
Yes.
To find them in their home. They go to the address that they have with the warrant, and they knock on the door, and a 17-year-old white boy answers the door.
Yes.
They make him, like, lay on the ground.
Yes.
Yell at him, berating him.
Strip search him. They run through the house. They find a white couple in bed, naked. Make them get out of bed, lay down on the ground, search them, only to realize that this is just a different family that moved into the house. That they have an outdated address. I'm sorry. The house had been sold 3 months prior to the warrant's issuance.
And somehow, they still thought that the couple they wanted, an African-American couple, would be in this house.
To be fair, they were wanted for identity theft, so...
Yeah, maybe they were just really good.
And I do have to say, so they sue for damages.
Yeah, so the couple is like, hey, you traumatized us and our child, and you, like, ruined our home. Fuck you, police.
Yeah.
And the police were like, sometimes, in order for there to be a society, the citizens just have to, like, bear the cost.
Can I hit you with the quote? Because you just almost said it
really?
word for word. Valid warrants will issue to search the innocent, and people like Rittel, unfortunately, must bear the cost.
What? Like, damn. That was what, like, I chose to... That was the moment that I decided I had to win We the People Nationals.
It's also the creation of one of our best names. We lost our question in the shuffle. Yeah. We named all of our drafts weird things that people said. We'll talk more about that in the finale episode. I have a very fun game.
Yes.
But we sat in class and talked about that case for maybe an hour.
Right.
And Summer said the thing about them being really good at identity theft.
Right.
And that's why it didn't matter. They're white people. Bruce was crying. Yeah. Laughing, sitting next to me. And Mr. Yu, our teacher, Mr. Olmschneider, came in.
Showed up and was like, you guys.
That was the week he made us be in the classroom the whole week because we couldn't focus.
Because he walked in on the LA County viewer teleconversation.
Yeah.
And he didn't give one fuck about that case ever. Like, and I kept, like, I tried so hard to make that case happen.
We
because
shoved
honestly,
it.
like
We really pegged it into the
okay, it's like kind of a funny, silly thing that like I love this case so much, and I think that it's just this crazy story, and that it's weird that like this is the court's attitude. But I also think I'm kind of onto something with like talking about this case all the time, because the sentiment that innocent people aren't really what matter most. Like we care more about policing. Like it's more about punishment than it is about protection. Like that was kind of at the crux of a lot of the conversations we had about the Fourth Amendment. Was like a philosophical debate about the purpose of privacy.
Would you rather let guilty people go to spare innocent people suffering and being presumed guilty, etc.?
Right.
And we say yes.
And this kind of was the case that I think sparked that conversation initially, and that's why I always wanted it to come up, and it just never did.
Can I hit you with, you probably know, my case that's that. My version of LA County, which is the one that no one knows about, no one cares about. It had one paragraph in the case book one time, and I have mentioned it in every round I've ever done.
Because it's
I've
funny.
mentioned it at nationals. Do you know what case I'm talking about?
The name...
It was in Chicago.
The name is Illinois v. Wardlow.
Illinois v. Wardlow. So, Illinois v. Wardlow, 2000? So it's not quite a post 9/11 world.
Yeah, Osama bin Laden's still on it.
Brief summary. Terry v. Ohio from 1968.
Oh, we really do have to talk about Terry first.
Terry v. Ohio is a landmark case.
Terry v. Ohio is like the Fourth Amendment case, other than Katz. Let me gather myself.
It's 1968, and I'm in Cincinnati, I believe. Yeah. And I'm a cop. And I'm
a piece of shit.
I'm on my beat, and I say I know how to tell when people are casing a jewelry store.
What I actually know how to do is racial profiling.
I walk up and down, which, this is my favorite thing, and I did not learn this until only a couple months ago. Every time the case was written up in a Supreme Court opinion from the district court, the circuit court, the district court, Supreme Court, the number of times that Mr. Terry and his associates walked back and forth across the jewelry store goes up from twice to half a dozen times to several times to like 24 times by the time it gets to the Supreme Court. So they're just kind of making shit up. But basically, this guy, Terry, and some associates of his, they're walking back and forth in front of this jewelry store, like maybe they're casing it. This cop decides that he can arrest them because they might be casing this store, even though he said in his police report he can't say what drew his eye to them. He doesn't know.
That's one of the best quotes, like, from anyone in the Supreme Court ever, was the guy whose entire case was based around the fact that he profiled an innocent person, saying that he honestly couldn't tell if he was... Like, he actually didn't know.
Yes.
Why are we here?
So he pats them down. He finds that they have guns, and those guns lead to their arrest. I believe it's an improper licensure, or they're carrying them without a license, etc. Basically, this starts this new idea called a Terry stop, which means that if there is danger to the officer, or there's a crime that's maybe about to be committed.
Oh my god. Or if you have, it's
reasonable suspicion, which is called more than a hunch, but less than probable cause.
Yeah.
In this case,
you don't need a warrant.
You don't need a warrant. You can just stop them. And this is a big deal case. And every time somebody brings up Terry stops, stop and frisk, anything, I go, this is what we do when we want to talk. And I say, Terry stops are bullshit because of what happened in the case Illinois versus Wardlow.
Great segue.
Now it's 2000. Pre 9/11, but post George Bush opening his mouth for the first time. Devastating time to be alive.
Yeah, really terrible.
It's rough, right? Oh, you can only get gay married in Vermont, I believe, at this time.
Gay married?
Yeah.
You can only get gay married in Vermont.
So this guy, there's cops in a caravan. They're driving through what they consider to be a high crime area of Chicago. Which just means there's a lot of black people there.
Right. And
they see this guy. It's unclear whether they were in marked cars or unmarked cars. It's never noted in a police report. But this guy, Wardlow, he sees this caravan of cops, and he turns and he runs the other direction. And they take him seeing these cops and running the other direction. He hasn't interacted with them at all. He's not doing anything illegal. As reason to chase him down, pat him down. They find a gun, and then he is arrested. And the court essentially says that flight from cops, even though they aren't pursuing you, in a high crime area is enough to trigger that, quote, reasonable suspicion, which makes a Terry stop legal, which means that the police can pat you down, they can put your hands behind your back, they can put you on the ground, etc.
So if you see a cop and you're in a poor area,
and you're black,
and you go the other way, the cop no longer needs a warrant to search you. Mm-hmm. You have now put yourself within the threshold of reasonable suspicion, which is a big part of constitutional conversations in any kind of context, but especially when it comes to the Fourth Amendment, is these really, like, icky, subjective words, like reasonable, because the Fourth Amendment itself has the word unreasonable in it. Like,
yes.
You can't do an unreasonable search, but what that actually means differs all the time. So you have probable cause, but, like, that's in the Fourth Amendment, but what is probable cause? Well, it's more than reasonable suspicion, but now you only need reasonable suspicion, and reasonable suspicion isn't even, like, that much. It's just a little more than a hunch. So, like, we unless you do the kind of, like, constitutional scholarship that we've dragged our corpses through, you wouldn't be as aware of the fact that, like, so much of what is between you and getting arrested is constitutionally protected bias of police. Mm-hmm. And that is what both of those, like, Terry and Wardlow, built up a regime of allowing police to just profile you.
And I would love to talk about the exclusionary rule. I have one more case that I think I'm going to use to kind of segue into that, and that is Kentucky versus King. We've mentioned it a couple of times. It's 2011.
Okay.
Obama is in office.
Okay.
I know what you're thinking. This is going to be a hit. No, ma'am. It's still Kentucky. And so some cops. See, to clarify, we had to drill out of ourselves not calling them cops.
Yeah.
We had to say police officer because it's inappropriate in a national competition in front of the 3 oldest men you've ever met who are probably libertarian Republicans to say cop. So we had to train ourselves to say police officer.
Did that stop me from doing it anyway? No. I still said cop at nationals.
No, it was Bruce that said cop, wasn't it?
It was me. Bruce fucked up in other ways. Oh, I think maybe he did, and I was like, I'm gonna make him feel better.
The wheels came off the bus. We started saying cop. We still won. It's whatever.
We still won.
Anyway, so these cops see what they believe to be a drug deal and with Mr. King, and then they run to his apartment, and they bang on the door, and they say...
Oh my god! I know this case.
They follow him back to his apartment. They bang on the door. They say, police, police, police. And then they believe, well, he's got to be destroying evidence in there. We just knocked on the door and said, police, police, police. And so then they break the door down and find coke and marijuana, etc. Mm-hmm. And the court says this is fine because exigent circumstances can occur that require you to not get a warrant, which is, in some cases, true and necessary. There are exigent circumstances wherein evidence is perhaps being destroyed and you need to get a warrant. However, when you, a cop, go and choose to knock on the door, and just the dissent written by Justice Ginsburg brings this up. If you, a cop, go knock on the door and say, police, 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 open up, we saw you do a drug deal.
You've manufactured an exigent circumstance,
and you've created a reason to not get a warrant. And it raises the very real question of, why couldn't they have waited and gotten a warrant? It takes about less than a day, usually a few hours, and sometimes less, to get a warrant.
You can make a little iPad request.
Judges sign them from their homes, usually, or they sign them from their offices. It's online. Fast. It's very quickly. They usually review a warrant, especially when it's from a beat cop about something like this, for less than 2 minutes. So they say, open up, and then they say, oh shit, they must be destroying evidence and there are cops here.
Right. So when you said exigent circumstances mere moments ago, I felt like a KGB sleeper agent, coming back. You said my trigger phrase, because I think more than any controversial question that we wrestled with, the ones about exigent circumstances were the ones that were, like, the most morally ambiguous, because I don't even want to, like, talk about...
What if my wife goes to her aunt's...
I don't want to talk about it! I don't want to talk about it. I can't put him on blast.
There are very difficult circumstances wherein obtaining a warrant is not always necessary. One of those is for things like welfare checks, when somebody is perhaps a danger to themselves or others, and you've received a tip saying, I think this person is going to cause harm to themselves or others, and there simply is not time to go and get a warrant before you knock on the door and say, you have to let us in, we need to make sure you're not about to harm yourself or someone else.
And the hard line that, like, we started drawing there being that, like, we basically wrote, like, our claim in some papers was that your right to privacy should be protected up to the point of imminent lawless action. And exigent circumstances and imminent lawless action kind of go hand in hand. So, like, if someone's about to be a danger to themselves or others, or destruction of evidence, like, that's when we say you can do warrantless searches. Other than that, get a warrant.
Yes.
Fourth Amendment, you're protected.
Yes.
And that blossomed a lot of really emotionally charged hypotheticals from practice judges about, like, well, what if your mom was in a burning building and blah blah blah, do I need a warrant to go in there? Like, it was this, like, easy low-hanging fruit for judges to be like,
try to call us
libertarian
out.
People, you're trying to build this standard that doesn't allow police to do their jobs. And I was like, that's my point. But that's why, I had, like, a visceral reaction when you said exigent circumstances, because I was always nervous that was going to be what people asked about. And I don't think in
the only person who ever did was during practice rounds.
Yeah. Our coach and some other teachers that we did.
During the actual regionals, we went down the whole of
abortion,
which we will talk about later.
Which is that's the one that we've got down pat.
We never had a problem with it.
Never had a problem with it, which is, like, crazy. You would think that, like,
abortion was our easy question.
Yeah. Like, that you would think it's the opposite, but no, abortion... No.
So, the reason I bring up Kentucky v. King is because it was all about whether the evidence of the marijuana and the coke that was seized by police was to be excluded or not. So, the exclusionary rule, which was created in Weeks versus United States...
And incorporated in Matt v. Ohio.
Yes.
I still got it.
Yeah. It's all still... I'm telling you, it's all still up there. You think it's not.
Sometimes I think I've forgotten everything.
No, it's all still up there.
Nope.
Basically says if the police do something illegal that allows them to obtain evidence that they would then use in a trial against you after arresting you, and it violates your Fourth Amendment rights, that evidence is to be excluded.
Yeah. And
it's a very American way of dealing with it.
Yep. And so we built the theory that the exclusionary rule is a bad way to deter cops from seizing evidence illegally.
Because all it does is encourage cops and courts to expand what is legal.
Yeah.
So that it cannot be excluded.
Right.
And it also has created a culture wherein cops know what words they have to use to not get their evidence excluded. Certain words about shifting eyes, shuffling back and forth, taking hands in and out of pockets.
Yeah.
Looking shifty.
If they can say that you did those sus things, they can convince juries that actually the evidence was seized legally, and now you don't have to exclude the evidence.
And there's specific, there are specific phrases that can be used. I remember one of them that I read where they were asking police what they thought was a constitutional reason to search someone, and one of them was looking a little suspicious. I was a New York cop, I believe, when they were discussing stop and frisk in New York City.
Suspicious.
Looking a little suspicious, you know. Looking like you just pegged a man. Maybe he's walking with a limp. You don't know.
That's enough. That's reasonable.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
And so there are other countries, other ways of deterring police that perhaps work better, like, for
suing
example,
the pants
being
off
able
of a police
to sue
department.
the pants off of the police department or the police officer. that are perhaps not realistic in the U.S. because of the exclusionary rule and because of police unions.
And qualified immunity.
Yes, and qualified immunity, which together create sort of a mosaic aggregate of... Are we going to talk about, like, digital privacy? Are we going to... How much time do we have?
We've been talking for 54 minutes.
Oh my god.
We can... I have so much to say.
Okay.
We can keep talking and I could just make it a part 2 episode. Because usually they're like an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay. Well,
so let's get into it,
so
bitch.
much of this
I'm
has
ready.
been not usable, so...
No, it's going.
So... the exclusionary rule, not super effective, but it really does make me question. I've been thinking about this recently after I went and watched our videos because we talked about, one of us mentioned police unions, and I was thinking, if you could sue the pants off of the cops, would that simply invite Supreme Court precedent about when you can't sue police because they were good faith doing their job in sort of a civil qualified immunity? Qualified immunity says that cops can't be arrested for things like police brutality when they were doing their best. Okay? Yeah. They were trying really hard, and they accidentally maybe did some brutality and crime. But they were doing their best. They were trying so hard. They were Boy Scouts when they were younger, so
you can't arrest them for it. So that would be my answer to your little question there, is that because we already have qualified immunity and we have the exclusionary rule, I think we're, like, cops are so immune from accountability anyway that it doesn't make a difference. And I think the perfect little combination of adequate deterrence for cops not seizing evidence illegally and just fixing some problems with policing anyway, other than abolishing it, is to end qualified immunity and end the exclusionary rule and replace it with suing, and then just get as much fucking money out of the police department as possible.
There's so many cases where civil suits go differently than the criminal suits.
Right. I wonder why.
But it really does happen very often that somebody is found to be innocent of crimes, but civilly liable with a different jury. The one that's coming to my mind is Bernie Getz, the guy who shot a bunch of people in a train. He shot 4 unarmed black teenagers on a metro train.
Yes.
Super strange guy. And he was found to be innocent because he believed he was threatened, even though he had, like, an assault-style rifle and shot some of them multiple times, even after they were...
clearly racially motivated crime, but that's neither nor there.
But, so he was found to be, found not to have committed a crime, but he was found civilly liable for the damages he caused to those kids, and owed millions of dollars, and so, in the court of public opinion, he was found to be guilty in some ways.
Right.
And so I certainly think money talks, and it would be a great day in America if every police department had to own up to what they did.
Yeah.
And, you know, you could tell people how much of their taxes were paying for their illegal criminal cop activities within their jurisdiction. I think that would be
a much greater deterrent, because the thing with the exclusionary rule is that it only works if every cop actually cares about crime being eliminated.
Yeah.
Like, the whole point of the exclusionary rule is the idea that the cop who seized the evidence wants to use that evidence to put a bad person behind bars, and that if you prevent that evidence from being used in court, that will, like, hurt the officer because they know that they've failed in their job. Yeah. And that is just not like,
necessarily true.
You're assuming that cops care about crime?
All of them?
What? That's crazy.
Try again.
What? But cops care about money. So if you sue them, different story. Also, and that was what we were going to say in the round, and then I lied.
What I mentioned in the round, it was the last thing we ever said in We the People. Okello Chattree versus United States.
Oh, okay, transition queen. I see where you're going with this.
Which, well, it's about the exclusionary rule, right?
Yeah.
He, Mr. Chowdhury is from Richmond, and it was Chesterfield, the county we're currently in. Am I doxing you by saying that?
Yeah.
It's our Richmond, Virginia district court that tried him and found him to be guilty, was arrested with a geofence warrant for robbing some jewelry stores, and he was arrested with this kind of warrant that basically scans all people who go into a particular area, irregardless of their innocence or guilt or suspicion of any sort of crime. It's just tracking everybody in that area. And
some might call that a general warrant.
Some might call that a general warrant, which is unconstitutional.
Yeah.
And so, God, it's so hard not to have to say unconstitutional under the Fourth Amendment's warrant clause, because we had to drop evidence.
I know. Having a We the People conversation without being in a round and being held to the rules of the round is so freeing. I feel alive.
So these geofence warrants, the judge said that she believed them to be unconstitutional, but didn't exclude the evidence that was collected unconstitutionally, because that's a thing that judges can do. They can rule to keep the evidence, but say in the opinion that they question the constitutionality of the rule.
Like anyone's gonna read the opinion.
Yeah, no one's read it except for me. I've read it.
Yeah.
And Samuel.
No one knew about it. When you said it, the judges were like, I hadn't heard of that case before.
No, because nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody reads about it. Nobody gives a shit. I care.
Yeah. That case won us a national competition.
Augustus Chin loved it.
Yeah. Oh.
And I love
Augustus
him.
Chin, please come on my podcast.
Oh my god.
Dude,
dream
guest.
Do you know that we're your biggest fans?
Not just him. I want the other guy too.
Which one?
He sat in the middle. No, he sat on the
Day 3?
Day 3 and Day 2.
Oh, the one that was speech.
Yeah, the one who gave really good handshakes and loved us.
Yeah. Yeah,
I want to work for him.
I would love to work for him.
Pretty sure he's liberal. He gave liberal vibes. I mean, we had a very liberal.
He was in the free speech one.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was the one that asked like, so what's the age where kids should be allowed? Yeah. Okay. So I think we've well and truly knocked out the exclusionary rule.
Yes. But with the discussion of geofence warrants,
I feel like
conveniently transitioned into our Natty's Q3.
I have if I may.
Please.
Can we sort of do sort of a guided meditation moment? I'd love for you to close your eyes.
Yes.
I want you to imagine a room.
Yeah.
Or a building, perhaps.
Okay.
In it.
Yeah.
A cop from every jurisdiction in the state. Also, several computers tracking your every location. Every move you make, every site you access.
I know where this is going.
If you're watching porn right now, you are? Nasty. Close that on your computer. Also, Abigail Spanberger is there.
Right.
She's
this
from
is
the
a
FBI.
Real building.
There's an agent from the FBI there. There's an agent from the CIA there. One of them just got an email. There's going to be a protest tonight. Don't worry. They know everyone who will be there.
Right.
They've been tracking them since the last one.
Right.
They're upset about their rights being violated. Don't be silly. They must be terrorists.
This is definitely something I need to send a lot of personnel to check out and harass people at.
You write a letter that says, these people might be terrorists. I saw on Twitter they throw bricks. That's very dangerous.
I'm gonna send my boys.
You press one button. Now that letter has been sent to every one of these buildings in the country. Everyone goes, oh shit.
There's about to be terrorism.
There's about to be You have just experienced a fusion center. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to hell!
This is a real thing. That building
is real.
Is real.
And there's one not far from wherever you are if you're in the US.
Yep.
There's one
in
every state.
If you're in Europe, I'm jealous because these aren't allowed there.
No, they have rules, they have laws, they have rights.
They have the GDPR.
So that's a fusion center, essentially.
Yes.
I guess we should...
So, yeah, I'll take it from here.
Yeah, hit me.
A fusion center is exactly what Greta just described. It's a fusion center for data collection, and it's a bunch of different people with different security clearances all gathering together in one building to, at first, stop terrorism, and now stop perfectly legal democratic exercises.
Mm-hmm.
And one of our questions at Nationals was if the existence of these fusion centers, whose very purpose is to consolidate data about Americans that Americans don't know is being collected about them in order to profile crime and stop crime before it starts, like, is that constitutional?
Mm-hmm.
And we said, hell nah!
Absolutely not.
Get rid of them.
They have to go.
They have to go. For so many reasons.
Mm-hmm.
We were probably the only, I don't know if this is true because we're not allowed to watch other teams at these competitions, but I'm sure you'll want to get into the, like, procedural aspects of why these are unconstitutional.
I would love to.
Let's go there, and then I'm going to talk about the special thing that we talked about.
Oh, yeah, so
no one else talked about.
We can sort of lay out, like, why do we have a problem with these, right?
Yeah.
Well, so, I'm trying to think.
Justice Sotomayor's concurrence in U.S. v. Jones. Jones v. U.S.?
Yes. So, fusion centers are operated by states and localities. Primarily, they are state and locality funded. They used to be primarily federally funded. That has shifted over the past couple years. And there's federal, state, local law enforcement there, first responders, and some private sector representatives who are distributing intelligence. And on the surface, this can be a good thing in some ways. Take, for example, if there was going to be a bombing threat at a sports arena, right? It might be federal law enforcement that gets a tip about potential terrorism there. It's going to be state law enforcement and local law enforcement who are the first ones on the grounds. And the private sector, the owners of that arena, the private security operating that arena, also need to be able to respond to that threat, right? Mm-hmm. So in a situation like that, perhaps a fusion center would be helpful in neutralizing a threat to a lot of people in a private area, but that requires synergy between local and state law enforcement, federal law enforcement, private actors, etc.
It's kind of like having a 911 operator, like, building where everyone's calling 911, it's going to the same building, but the people in the building can be like, you need a fire truck, you need an ambulance, I'm gonna do some kind of fusing and consolidating and organizing in order to make this happen.
I've always kind of thought about it as like an operator room for old-timey telephones, where the person takes the phone and you say, I want to talk to Mal Phillips in Chesterfield, and they go, I'm gonna put a wire into another hole.
Right.
And now you're talking to Mal.
Transfer you.
Yeah. However, a couple quick notes about fusion centers. They target social activists, minorities, paint them as unfair threats. For example, they classify pro-choice activists as
violent
quote,
extremists.
Potential violent extremists, even though those abortion activists, this happened in Virginia, had no history of engaging in any sort of violence or extremism
ever
at the time.
Yeah.
There's no evidence that fusion centers stop or prevent any terrorist activity. The lack of oversight of fusion centers, because there is no federal oversight of them except for a GAO report that is stated to, in particular, its main goal to promote the continued use of the fusion centers.
Yeah.
So hackers breached a fusion center in 2020, which exposed hundreds of thousands of sensitive records from the FBI, the DHS, local and state law enforcement agencies. They have admitted San Antonio Fusion Center, after a bombing was, a mass shooting was neutralized, it was stopped from happening. The Fusion Center tried to take credit, and the police department said, we didn't use the Fusion Center at all, we never have.
Because you send us so much crap that we've started ignoring it.
Yes.
So we did our own job.
The primary function of Fusion Centers, as it is today, is writing these threat assessment type memos and sending them out all over. But because they get so much information to the Fusion Center, there's multiple national and state databases that they use. They also accept these threat reports, essentially, which can be submitted by private individuals as well as state and local actors from law enforcement, that they are screening hundreds and thousands of threats every month and attempting to write up what is truly dangerous, throw out what isn't, and disseminate that information as quickly as possible, which, of course, empowers the inherent biases of police and the people who are in the Fusion Center who love to target social activist groups and minorities. Exactly.
Yeah. So what that eventually causes is such a surplus of bullshit going to police departments that police, like, don't even use the reports anymore. And that's what happened in San Antonio. So they're useless. Not only are they empowering inherent biases and making police potentially more dangerous, but they're either being more dangerous than police already would be, or they're doing nothing. And they're just getting a bunch of money going towards nothing.
They've become very efficient at sensationalizing legal protest and not doing very much about illegal actions. Can I hit you with some Fusion Center worst hits?
Yes.
Austin, Texas Fusion Center combed social media for announcements of Black Lives Matter organizations and events, including a Juneteenth celebration, a meditation circle, and candlelight vigils for victims of police violence, and disseminated memos about those as potential violent extremist activity.
Yeah.
The National Fusion Center Network distributed false threats warning of, quote, Antifa arsonists starting wildfires in the western United States, as well as, quote, anarchist extremists planning a International Sabotage Day.
Make that real, actually. International Sabotage Day? Wait, can we do that?
We'll talk about it later. Minnesota Fusion Center speculated on a, quote, Antifa car bomb and used an FBI report. After taking that FBI report, scrubbing it of the language that showed skepticism of the claims, and then disseminated it to local law enforcement. Fusion centers in Oregon and North Dakota tracked attendance of anti-pipeline protests using helicopters, as well as technology that allowed them to identify people. So they were essentially tracking citizens who attended a protest because they believed that they were potentially going to be terrorists, I guess, which meant that they were essentially tailing innocent people who were using their First Amendment right to assembly just for fun.
Right.
And finally, I'll hit you with, back at home, 2022 Virginia Fusion Center report observed that groups from both sides of the issue, that being pro-life and pro-choice in this instance, were organizing protests following the Dobbs v. Jackson opinion, and warned that both groups may become violent, without clarifying that national records said that anti-abortion extremists had committed the vast majority of abortion-related protest violence.
So their whole job is to look at data about who's violent and predict who's going to be violent, and then they just didn't.
Yeah.
They just ignored all the data.
A lot of this information, I'm doing a fantastic segue right now, I'm just warning you, comes from the Brennan Center, which is a great group. Justice Brennan, we love you, king of my heart. The opposite of Justice Scalia to me. I don't think we would be friends, but I love him in a way that I think Scalia and I could have a drink together, but I would punch him when given the chance.
Yes, he's the yin to Scalia's yang.
Absolutely. And so the Brennan Center released this report, and they said, well, we need to do all these things to fusion centers. We need to, they need to have more oversight. They need to be reporting on what they're doing more than just reporting with the aim of getting themselves more money and being perceived as good. There needs to be federal director of oversight for them that can report to Congress. Congress needs to hold hearings about them, etc., etc., etc. And so we read all this, and we said, sure, but
these are all real reasons why you should get rid of fusion centers. Reasons such as things that they've done that are bad, and ways that they work that are bad. But what if there was a vaguer, less real reason for fusion centers to be bad?
Yeah.
And that's what we put in our paper. Can I do this one?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Please.
So, there was this case called U.S. v. Jones. Is it Jones v. U.S.? I have no idea.
U.S. v. Jones.
Okay. Where, I think he was a drug dealer. This drug dealer's wife, had a car, as some people do. And
pretty common.
When it was parked in a public parking lot, police trying to find this man went up to his wife's car, but it was registered in his name. This is important, I guess.
To me, and to you.
And to me it is. And they put a GPS tracking device hidden on the back of the car.
Yeah.
And they tracked her movements
For
For
2 months?
1 month, I think.
Okay.
At least a month.
Mm-hmm. I think it was 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Split the difference.
Then they used this evidence about where the car went to convict that guy of crimes.
Uh-huh.
And then, before the court, Jones was like, okay, fuck you.
This violated my Fourth Amendment rights.
That was a warrantless search.
Uh-huh.
I have a reasonable expectation of privacy in my movements.
Yes.
But it's a kind of complicated question because they're in public, and also anything that has to do with cars ever is fucked up and weird.
Mm-hmm.
So the court decided that the court kind of avoided the question of can police track movements digitally with like a really big surplus of data, like for example 6 weeks of GPS data.
Yeah.
The majority opinion in the case just like if on some kind of technicality rules out.
They tried to create this thing called the trespass test.
Oh, fuck the trespass test.
Remember when I said back when the court used to make doctrines that make sense? Well, we firmly left that by the time we get to U.S. v. Jones.
The trespass doctrine. Scalia tried so hard with the trespass doctrine to, like, make something.
It's a doctrine that only makes sense if you're an old man sitting on a porch with a gun, and you think that if somebody walks on your yard, you get to shoot him in the face.
Scalia didn't want to really answer the big questions of the case, so he made a doctrine about it. And this trespass doctrine says that, like, the Fourth Amendment, really what it's about is that, like, I have property.
Yeah.
And you can't come and fuck with it.
Yeah. The fact that you came to my car.
Yeah.
And touched it.
The act of putting the GPS on the car
that's the problem.
Meant that you, a stranger, touched my stuff. And that's not good.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ignore the 6 weeks of GPS data. That's irrelevant. I'm gonna exclude the evidence of the GPS stuff because you trespassed by putting the GPS on my car.
You stepped on my porch and I can shoot you now.
Right. Bullshit reasoning, don't care.
However,
someone else took up the torch and made a good decision in the same case in the concurrence.
Let me say this. Sonia Sotomayor. Samuel Alito.
Yeah.
What do these two people have in common? Upon first glance, they both look great in a robe. What else? They wrote opinions, concurring opinions in U.S. v. Jones that used
mosaic theory.
Mosaic theory.
Mosaic theory is the obscure theory that we put in our We the People paper that probably no one else talked about because why would they? But we used to dismantle the concept of fusion centers. And it's all because of... Okay, Alito's concurrence is a little bit whack.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not...
Alito's a little bit whack.
Alito was a little bit
Retire.
He wrote some... Everything he writes is, like, 70% longer than it needs to be.
Yeah. Boy, is it.
It's... He writes about how, like, yes, we should not have... We should exclude the evidence. Clearly this was a constitutional violation. Because, A, maybe Scalia has a point. Maybe trespassing is bad.
Yeah.
But also, B, maybe tracking people for a really long period of time is also bad.
Yeah.
Maybe that creates a mosaic aggregate of someone's actions that can compose a picture that, even if the individual things themselves wouldn't be constitutional violations, when put together, you create such a vast picture of someone's every move that now you've gotten enough information about them that if it was all in one thing, one convenient package, you would have needed a warrant to get it. Does that sound really confusing? That's because it is. But you know who fixed that and wrote a way more concise version of the same point and also managed to roast Scalia in the process? Sonia Sotomayor. Her concurrence was the basis for, like, everything that we talked about because she hit the nail on the head. So.
She essentially said when there's so many options and opportunities that the police are actively using to pervasively surveil you that thousands of data points can be collected on you. They can essentially assemble a picture of your every movement, your every communication, your every action, your every location, etc. your Fourth Amendment right is potentially being violated and that information should require Fourth Amendment protection. And in collecting that information and using it to create a profile on everything you do, your associational expressive First Amendment freedoms may be chilled. And chilling essentially means that because you are afraid of the consequences, you do not speak, do not act, do not assemble in a legal way because you are afraid of potential consequences. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to publish that article about why all cops are bastards, or I'm not going to go to this protest, or I'm not going to give a demonstration at my college campus, whatever, because I'm afraid of what the police, what the government, what the court might do to me, even though what I'm doing is legal, which means that my legal speech has essentially circumspectively been stopped.
Yeah.
Or violated. And fusion centers, on top of creating all these reports, are also sort of constantly taking in these streams of data from Ring doorbells, from
Chase Bank.
From Chase Bank, yes. From the helicopters that they put over this protest, from traffic cameras, from private cameras, from ticket sales to the sports arena, ticket sales to a concert venue, etc. And they can use all this information to, if they decide that you are suspicious or guilty or whatever, assemble a picture of your every movement and communication, and their existence enables this inherently, regardless of how much you do oversight, regardless of how much they talk to Congress. Their existence is inherently causing this mosaic aggregate of information to chill people's free speech and create a surveillance state that is antithetical to the Fourth Amendment. And so, what are we gonna do?
Get rid of them?
Abolish them!
Yeah.
And we said that in front of adults.
We said that in front of people who have thought about this question a lot and probably thought of, like, every other way to deal with the issue of fusion centers. And we went up there full, like, chests high.
Yeah.
And said, let's just get rid of them because of this theory.
Yeah.
Because even if every tile of the mosaic of information about you was collected in a way that's, like, valid with or without a warrant,
yes,
you've gotten so much information on a person that you know so much about them, their right to privacy has been violated even if you got a warrant for it.
Yes.
Because most of these people are innocent.
Yes.
I would go so far as to say probably all of these people are innocent.
And you might think that, you know, just having information from a stoplight camera, that's probably not, you would use that procedurally.
Yes.
It's probably not illegal.
Right.
But when you start thinking about having information from every stoplight camera, it's accessible to every state and local law enforcement agency to just see where you're going. That information isn't warrant protected. And chances are, even if there's somebody who does not have the clearance to see it in a fusion center, they can just look at their buddy's computer next to them. I'm not making that up. The Brennan Center report says that. There are instances wherein they just kind of look at the one next to them.
Or in a passing conversation in the elevator.
Yes.
Exchanged details that one person didn't have clearance to know. If you put a bunch of people with different security clearance in the same building and give them every tool possible to learn everything they need to know about every American, there is no way that can possibly not violate Americans' right to privacy.
Yes.
So we have to get rid of them. And we said that, like, I feel like us making that claim in front of people who matter, who are judges and lawyers, had maybe a tangible impact on the fusion center conversation. Do I have any evidence that is true?
No.
Of course not. But I like to think that because we were at, like, the National Convention Center and proceeded to win this competition, that, like, maybe we planted a seed in Augustus Chin's mind.
Yeah.
And that maybe Augustus Chin is going to go back to his... Utah. His Utah.
You might think he came out of an episode of Star Trek.
Yes.
No, he's from Utah.
It's the same thing. He's going to go back to wherever he's a professor or whatever. And something is just going to be a little different about him. And it's because a bunch of 18-year-olds told him that one of America's most powerful surveillance institutions should be abolished. And that's something that he's had to wrestle with ever since.
Speaking of powerful surveillance institutions, are we going to talk about FISA here today? We have about half an hour until we need to wrap.
And according to my personal schedule, we have about 6 minutes until we need to wrap.
Okay.
Do you want to do a lightning round on FISA?
Would you rather do lightning round of five-star or abortion?
Let's do abortion. I think people want to know about that.
Okay. Because...
Hey, squad. It's me editing this episode of Runky's Room. My hair's different. It'll be addressed in a different video. Just be patient. So that little lightning round we were gonna do on abortion, it actually was a 20-minute round we did on abortion. So if you would like to see the last remaining 20 minutes of this episode, I will post them if I hit 50 subscribers. Yeah. So I just feel like it's like this episode is already an hour and 24 minutes long. So I'm just gonna save that last 20-minute chunk and post it as like a bonus episode if people want to see it. So if I hit 50 subs, then I guess it'll be my little bonus episode for 50 subscribers. But like, if that doesn't happen, guess you'll just never see it. Guess you'll never get to know what we think. So anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.